This is a long term. This is for my girlies who are really thinking about like retirement, who want to set themselves up and set their future generations up. This isn't for the girlies who want a quick get rich scam. That's a different podcast that's saying that. Hey sis, welcome back to another episode of Sistervention, where we champion and check each other with love, of course. Today's intervention, home ownership. Yep. We're getting real about securing the bag and the deed because this is not something that's just a flex. It is foundational. My girlies, I need you to listen up to this episode. Buying a home is so important. If you've ever had a conversation with me, we've probably talked about home buying at one point in the conversation. It is something that I truly believe in. I have experience, and I got a little secret for you guys that you will be the first to hear it. So make sure you listen, stay to the end. I am so excited to be doing this episode with you guys. So if you are scared to look at Zillow or you've already been saving for your first home, don't worry. This conversation is for you both. Let's get into it. Now, I will say, I've never been scared to buy a house. I actually could not wait to buy my first home. I wish I would have bought it a lot sooner. So again, as your big sister, every week, I'm going to tell you guys, these are things from experience, okay? As your big sister, I'm letting you know you need to own property, sis. You need to own property. Say it with me. You need to own property. And I know you're thinking, but sis, like the economy is in the toilet. Eggs is $10. Like, how am I supposed to buy a house, let alone save for a down payment, maintenance, all the things? I'm just a girl. And look, I'm just a girl too. So don't worry. I'm going to walk you guys through. I'm going to hold your hand. But when I say by the end of this episode, I really want everyone ready to go get their first property. That is the goal of this episode. So please leave a comment below. If you already are home ownership, drop some tips below, because I'm not saying it's easy, but what I'm saying is that it's worth it. So let me take you back a little bit. Now, I have a family that has invested in real estate like my whole life, right? So my parents bought their house at 24, and I was like, wow, goals, right? Like, I want to buy a house too that young. And back then, interest rates were like 18%. So when people are talking about the interest rates now, I'm like, they could be higher, sister. They could be higher. Now, granted, we got spoiled. I'm sorry to break it to you. 2% is probably not going to happen again. It's probably not going to happen again. So if you missed the whole COVID wave, I'm sorry. But what I will tell you is that a lot of people who did buy houses in 2020 and 2021 with the 2 and 3% interest rates, they're not going anywhere. They cannot move because they cannot afford to go in a home that is better than the one they're currently in, because they cannot qualify for a home that's better than they currently are in. So if you missed it, it's okay. Okay? It's okay, because everything has its pros and cons. And if you are someone who is listening to this podcast and you're like, well, I heard interest rates were going to drop. I'm gonna be giving it to you this episode, okay? I'm here to let you know that interest rates may drop, but that means that the prices are just going to go up. So it's going to even out. And honestly, this is probably going to be the most important line in the entire podcast. Are you ready? There's never a right time to buy a house. The best time to buy a house is when you can afford it. Say it with me. The best time to buy a house is when you can afford it. I don't care what the interest rates are doing. I don't care what the market is doing, because if you cannot afford it, it is not a good time for you to buy a house. And I think that's one of the biggest, misconceptions. People always talk about, when the crash, I should have been buying houses in 2008, even though we were all 16. But let me tell you something. People who bought in 2008, if you actually talk to someone who bought in 2008, they don't really have the best things to say about it. The mortgage industry was in complete shambles. Everyone was committing fraud. And that is why the housing market completely pretty much collapsed. COVID brought a very different scenario to the equation because, again, no one was moving because the world was in a legit pandemic and everyone was really scared. So, of course, they had to drop interest rates really, really low. And then everyone moved to these cities where you could work from Texas and not pay income taxes and get a house for $300,000 that had 5 bedrooms and a whole acre of land. And now these houses have tripled and doubled. But you know what also has tripled and doubled? Those property taxes. So now those people are fighting for homestead exemptions because their house went from $300,000 to 1 million over the course of 3 years, and they cannot keep up. That can add thousands onto your mortgage. So when you see people on TikTok complaining, talking about I don't want to buy a home, I don't want to buy a home. If you haven't bought one yet, there are definitely some things you're not really missing out on. But what I will tell you is all the things you are missing out on. There is just a foundational flex of owning a home. And we'll get into it, but that is going to be one of the biggest wealth, gainers for you. Like, if you really want to acquire wealth, real estate is going to be a great way to do that. So I know I just jumped in, okay? I jumped in this episode because, as you can tell, it is something I am so passionate about, because especially as a woman, as a Black woman, this is really probably the best thing you could do for yourself. And I know my girls are like, girl, I just can't. The responsibility, I'm just a girl. I'm not married. I want to wait till my man, yada, 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 whatever. Girl, I didn't say you had to live in a house. You just need to own property. If you don't own anything, you don't run anything. How many times have you gotten that letter or that email from your leasing office, rent is going up, and now you over here chasing a 6-week special, trying to find somewhere else to live because your rent is too high? I know. And granted, now I will say them property taxes will keep going up. So there's that. But the equity that you gain, the generational wealth that you can build, and I honestly hate the term generational wealth because it's such a buzzword. But if you actually have a real strategy, like an estate planning strategy of how you're going to pass down these houses, and you're playing the long game, this episode is for you, okay? Real estate is a long game. I do not want you to get caught up in the flipping of it all, in the, buy 10 houses, how many doors do you have? You could just Airbnb them out. Baby, I've done it all, okay? I've been a long-term investor. I've lived in a primary residence. I've done short-term rentals, Airbnb. It's not easy, okay? Nothing worth having comes easy, right? So you gotta cancel out all the noise. That's number one, right? And I know it's like, girl, who are you? You over here yelling at us through a podcast mic, talk about, so we need to buy houses. Well, how did you buy your house, girl? Because that's another thing. I'm gonna keep it really real with y'all. A lot of people won't, okay? They don't tell you how they got these things, or they tell you that you need to work hard and you just need to save your money, but they don't tell you who's actually behind the scenes pulling the strings for them. So let's do a quick walk down my journey. In 2019, I bought my first home in LA. And when I say I bought my first home, I use that term loosely because me and my dad did it together. And I don't want to hear anybody in the comments be like, oh, well, she had help from her dad, and did. And if you have a dad, I highly encourage you to get some help from him as well if you can. There's no need for you to have to do this on your own if you do not have to, right? But here's the thing. I got that house and I found it. I knew that Inglewood was going to be building a stadium. I knew the Olympics were coming. And I said, this is going to be a good area to invest in. And I had to convince my dad that this was going to be a good area to invest in. I never forget, he flew in. It was after we closed. He was like, this is what you spent our money on? I was like, oh, God, he's going to kill me. Like, I've just made a terrible decision. It actually was a great decision. But at the time, I was like, oh, my God, I got this little townhouse for all this money because it's LA. You know how it go. It's expensive. And you're not getting a lot. Very similar to New York. You're not getting a lot for your money. And it was ugly, okay? And I was coming from floor-to-ceiling windows, looking at the Hollywood sign, but I knew that I had to sacrifice if I really wanted to get ahead. But I was like, wow, this place is ugly. And I never forget, I went to the south of France for 8 days, like right after I closed on the house. And I know my dad was looking at me like I was crazy. And I got back to like a stack of bills. I was looking at these ugly walls, this disgusting carpet, this ugly kitchen. And I was like in shambles. I was like, what did I do? And in hindsight, it was probably the best decision I've ever made. And it really kickstarted my love for real estate. But it was rough, okay? It was rough. And I know this sounds crazy, right? Like, girl, you went to South of France for 8 days. You came back to your house. You're over here crying because you think it's ugly. This is my reality, okay? Judge not. Judge not. And I will say, there is a creator named Blake Newbie. She has a podcast called According to Blake. And she actually just did an episode about how it's expensive to dream and how she really loves living in New York because of the life that she was able to have in New York. And a lot of it in her early stages of her career were funded by her parents. And I think that people get a lot of, shame for having good parents. And if you've listened to this podcast, I talk about them every episode because I'm so thankful for them because I didn't ask to be here. So, the least they can do is make this time on earth a little bit easier. Appreciate y'all. Love y'all down. But yeah, so I love that episode. If you are not familiar with her podcast, I highly recommend you go listen to it because it was really, really good. And she just talked about working in journalism very early on, very similar to myself. I have a journalism degree and you don't make any money in journalism. And I lived in New York right after college. That's where I'm from. And it's very, very, very expensive. So to live and to dream and be able to do these things and have great parents is such a blessing. And I understand everyone doesn't have that, but I'm telling my story. So I bought the house in 2019. COVID hit. I was like, wow, I'm stuck in this house. I had started doing renovations. And one thing about me, very all or nothing. It's a theme that you'll see about me through and through. I ripped like everything out the house. I was like, I hate these bathrooms. I gutted the bathrooms. I was like literally using one shower and one toilet. They were in two separate bathrooms because I was like, I'm gutting everything. I'm going to renovate this whole place. And I started getting those quotes and I was like, oh, baby, what is happening? So that was such a learning curve for me. My dad was like, you don't need to do anything in this house. I was like, oh, baby, you're not living here. I am. I need to do a lot. So I had paid for the renovations and I was paying the mortgage. So that was a deal. He was going to help with the down payment. I was going to, take care of the home until we were time to sell it. And then we were going to split the profits whenever that was going to be. So I had like ripped up the floors. I had ripped out the bathrooms. I knew the kitchen was going to be too expensive for me. So I didn't play myself. I was like, girl, you like to eat. So don't go playing with that kitchen. So I left everything and I started doing these like renovations. And I must say, for my budget, I did a really good job. But contractors are the shadiest people I've ever met in my entire life, okay? And when you are a woman, and I'm talking to all my sisters, like when you go on this journey, you may not have a brother or a cousin or a male friend or a dad. Like, I was in California, my dad lived in New York. So there was no him there when I had to meet these contractors. Make sure you get a team that you can trust. Make sure you really vet these people properly. I never forget I had a plumbing issue. People were giving me all types of crazy rates. I found a guy. He comes to my apartment and the way it was set up, you could park underneath. I had two spots. I let him park underneath and he sees my car and he's like, don't let anybody else park underneath here. I'm like, what? He was like, the moment they see your car, the price has now changed. And I'm like, what do you mean? He was like, they're just going to do that to you. You're a girl. I never forget I had these guys who did my floors and they damn near tried to extort me. I was doing a podcast. I was doing my old podcast, Clear the Air at the time. And they had like seen my signature and my email or whatever. Pretty much they found my socials. They're like, oh, this girl got money and don't. Okay, every day the price was changing. They needed more materials. They needed more money. The job cost more than they expected. It's a lot. And I know it's sounding like homeownership is a struggle. It is, but it's a beautiful struggle. It's such a beautiful struggle. So either way, I renovated the place. COVID hit. I was like, wow, I think I'm actually going to leave LA because I don't want to work anymore. And I don't really want to live in LA anymore if I'm not going to be working entertainment. So I ended up selling my house. Now, granted, when I sold my house, it was the perfect time. And that's the thing about real estate. You have to understand the timing, not only of your life, but of the market and see what's happening. Because at the end of the day, it still is just economics. You got to pay attention. So I saw that interest rates were low. People were overbuying in COVID. Once they got over the fact that, we weren't all going to die. Unfortunately, some people did die. But, once we got over the fact that the world is trying to at least return back to normal, everyone was like, let me take advantage of these low interest rates. I'm moving. But that's when the demand went up. So the supply was down. There was more demand than supply, right? So that's when people were overbidding. I had 30 people come in 2 days to see my house and I had 7 offers. And I didn't even take the highest offer because I had one that was a little lower, but it was a better package. So that's also something you have to look at. Are you putting a large down payment down? Are you waiving contingencies? And I know a lot of this verbiage might be like, girl, what are you talking about? And it's fine. Look, this is how we learn, right? So waiving contingencies means you may not do an inspection, or you may waive appraisal, or you may say, I'm going to do appraisal, but I don't care what it is. Or you may do appraisal gap where you say, hey, if it comes back and the house is only worth $400,000 and I'm willing to pay $450,000, the bank won't approve that. So I'm going to cover the gap out of cash, right? That was ways that people were able, or you just have straight cash, right? Those were ways for you to win the bid on a house. So took the offer, they put down 40% and they had a quicker closing. So took that down. Found out there was some more things going on with the house when I went to go sell it. So had to, fix that last minute. But finally got my big girl check and I was like, oh, this is nice. So I took that money and reinvested it down south because I was like, look, my money can go a lot further down south. I was able to find 2 quadruplexes bought both of those, that was an entire struggle just because, again, when you're working with loan officers and real estate agents and contractors, everyone is a used car salesman, okay? Everyone wants to get the deal done. They're going to tell you what they need to tell you to get you through the door, because once you're through the door, you're like, well, baby, I'm not going anywhere now. I came this far, so we want to close the deal. So I will say that when you are building your team and thinking about buying a home, you need to think about all angles. Who's going to be financing the loan? Who's your real estate agent? Who's going to be your contractors, your maintenance man, all those things. That is something that I didn't necessarily have all lined up, but moving forward, it's something that I would always encourage everyone to do. Your real estate agent is going to be the person that you talk to. They're kind of on the front lines for you when you're negotiating the deal. So you definitely want to have someone that you trust and really understands you. One thing I realized with real estate is a very emotional process, right? I never forget the first time I was buying in LA. My real estate agent was just like saying all these things to me. And I had to tell him, I said, sir, you're acting as if I bought a house before. When you're a first-time home buyer, you really don't know what you don't know. And while you can Google and research yourself to death, there are just curveballs that are going to be thrown at you when it's time to close that deal that you are just not prepared for. So I had to tell him, like, bro, I've never done this before. So if you could stop acting like I have and really take the time to explain things to me, answer the phone, don't just send me text messages, things like that. So if you're a realtor watching this, please take in consideration from a home buyer's perspective. Like, they've never done this. This might be your 100th transaction. Like, especially for your first-time home buyers, like, it's not just a closing gift at the end. It's the experience from the moment that they initiate contact with you and say, hey, I want to make this big step into home ownership and financial freedom and building legacy and generational wealth and all the things. I say that to say, so then I became an investor and a landlord, right? And that's a totally different experience. And I think a lot of people who want to avoid the responsibility of it being their primary residence, they like living in a high rise, or they like, being able to call the maintenance man. Cool. You still need to own property. You still need to own property. You do not have to live in it. You do not have to live in it. But I do think it's so important for you to own property. It is nothing like having these assets, okay? Not liabilities, assets, right? And when we talk about coming up with the money for these things, there are so many programs out there. There are grants, there are zero down payment, there are, down payment assistance programs. You have to look, and again, find a realtor that's willing to, help you find these things. If you tell them your situation and you really build a relationship with them, they should be able to help you find these things, or at least point you in the right direction, okay? So when you're looking at buying a home, there are so many ways to do it. There are even hard money loans. If you want to get into flipping, there's ways to do that with zero to little money down. But what I will say is that you do need to save, because things are always unexpectedly going to come up. But, for the girls who really aren't still convinced, right? It's like, okay, girl, you just told me a lot, right? You got contractors, you're dealing with shady agents, shady mortgage people. Like, what, girl, what's tea? Like, why would I even want to do this? When I tell you, when I got these checks from real estate, I've never done less work and made more money. And granted, now, yes, do I have to deal with headaches because things are always happening? Sure. I hired a property manager. I've only visited my rental property twice. And that's not everybody's ministry. Personally, I would have loved to do it more, but I just wasn't trying to be in South Carolina like that, to just be completely transparent. In Dallas, I'll be going to them a lot more frequently because I live here. But I had a property manager, and they took care of everything. That's why I paid them. I paid them 10% of the rent roll. They took care of what I need to take care of. If I had a new tenant coming in, they would, move them in. They would put out the postings. If I needed, to find a new tenant, they do the background checks, the credit checks, all of that, right? And again, you're paying them. So you tell them what you want and they come up with a package for you. That's just what I had. But honestly, that was the best decision I could have ever made. Like, as a girlie who really likes to live the soft life, I can't be in the trenches with these tenants. I just can't. I can't. They actually never even saw me. They didn't even know who owned the property. And I recommend you do that. I don't think you really need to reveal who you are, because people will try to play with you. I've seen horror stories online about people who had just terrible tenants. That, luckily, knock on wood, was not, my experience, but it happens, right? That's just a part of the game. But as I mentioned earlier, it is a long-term gain. Now, granted, I was able to kind of live in these properties and keep them for a while. But my goal is to really keep these properties forever. Now, when it comes to keeping these properties for long term, a lot of people need their money back, right? I think that is the biggest problem with our community when we want to invest. It's like, we need a quick turnaround. No, baby. You're going to put this money in the ground and it's going to stay there. Now, granted, there are opportunities to, pull it out and refinance and all those things, right? Some people truly believe in the BRRRR method where you borrow, you refinance, you reinvest, you get the equity, all those things. That's great. Personally, that's not my ministry, and I'm not even going to get into that because, again, everyone has their own exit strategies for their investments. But either way, when you buy that house, you need to know what is your end goal. Is it to pass it down to your future children or family members? Is it to make money? Is it to rent it out? Is it to Airbnb it? Is it to live in it for 2 years, roll it over into investment property after that? Because you have to run the numbers. Real estate is a numbers game. I don't care what anyone says. When I buy houses, I'm not looking at, do I like the kitchen? Do I, the bathroom, the floor? No. I'm looking at school districts. I'm looking at comps around the neighborhood. I'm looking at resale value. I'm looking at, okay, if I live in it for 2 years, is my mortgage going to be more than what the current rents are going? Because God forbid, I need to move out of here. I don't want to have to sell my house because I'm upside down in it and can't even break even for the rent, right? Another thing we need to talk about is being house poor. If your budget, if the loan approves you, if the bank approves you for $300,000, you do not need to go buy a house for $300,000. You need to be under, say it with me, your loan approval. And if you have a realtor who takes you out and they know that you only have a pre-approval for $300,000 and they are pushing you to go above budget, you need to run and let that agent go, okay? These people are trying to make money. And they do not have your best interest at heart. You are only the person who's going to have your best interest at heart, okay? And only you are going to have to pay that mortgage at the end of the day, those property taxes, that PMI, all the things. So I highly, highly, highly encourage you to stay under budget when shopping for the home, because it is so easy to see all these beautiful homes and be like, oh my God, it's new construction. It's so amazing. I want this. I want that. It's like, babes, do you want to be house poor? Because it's cool to say you own a house, but when you can't, go out to the dinners, you can't go on vacation, you're scared to go to a birthday dinner and you counting your coins on the side, like, what was all this for, right? Because again, people say, the equity. You only get the equity if you sell or refinance. The equity's in the ground, babes. So again, this is a long term. This is for my girlies who are really thinking about retirement, who want to set themselves up and set their future generations up. This isn't for the girlies who want a quick get rich scam. That's a different podcast that's saying that. But for people who really want foundational things to set themselves up for success, the fact that home ownership in 1968, when the Fair Housing Act was created, is only up 4% in 2025 is a problem for me. We do not own anything as a community. And I understand that we have so many barriers to owning homes, but I also see so many people who buy designer and go out and travel and spend their money. And that's fine if you want to spend your money on other things. No one's saying you have to buy real estate. But what I'm telling you is that you should buy real estate. You should buy real estate because in a minute, it's going to be unattainable for many. So while it's still in reach, I highly encourage you to get on it, sister, because in a minute, you're not even going to be able to. And the fact that, we're looking at rent becoming more than, mortgages these days, that just lets you know the way our economy is trending. So you better get one now before it's too late. Now, I want to give you a little checklist of things you should do if you're looking to buy a home. You listen to this episode, you says, girl, stop yelling. Damn, I'm gonna go do it. Okay, great. So first thing I want you to do is check your credit. Now, you can use Credit Karma, but don't be surprised when they pull that credit report. It's a little different, okay? There's a little discrepancy in the scores. You want to pull your free annual credit report. You can go freecreditreport.com. You can pull it once a year for free. You want to dispute anything that's not you, things that are actually not you, or if they have wrong information on there. You want to clear that all up. And honestly, I would say I would do this about probably 4 months before you're getting ready to go get that pre-approval, just so you have time, right? Credit works on a 30-day cycle. So you want to have time for these things to hit and not be telling your loan officer, well, I tried to dispute it, but it didn't go through, because babes, the closing is going to be all messed up, okay? The closing is going to be all messed up. So you want to make sure you get that ahead of time. Now, the next thing is you got to start saving. You have to start saving. Now, personally, if I really was born into wealth and had all the money in the world, I would be buying my houses cash. But for right now, I am buying them at very low prices because I do not want a big mortgage. To each its own. Some people will argue me down. Use their money to make money and leverage. Da, da, da. All I'm going to say, and I'll leave you with this, is that the Bible says the borrower will always be a slave to the lender. Therefore, it's in the Bible. Look it up. So therefore, the more you borrow, the more you have to repay. And if you've ever looked at a mortgage statement, when you see how much has actually gone to the principal and how much has gone to interest, you might want to get a smaller house, okay? Because there's nothing wrong with having a smaller house, especially if you're able to, sell that one, get money, and instead of rolling into a bigger house, actually just, put that money down for a house that you can actually afford. Some people more so just care about their month-to-month payment. They don't mind paying over 30 years, but when you look at the interest and see that you bought that house about 3 times over, it'll really make you want to throw up. Okay. But either way, save your money. So whether, it's for your down payment, your maintenance, the unexpected, you want to have a good chunk of savings, I will say. Now, granted, if you don't have a lot of savings and you say, hey, I just want to go for it, that was me. I didn't have hundreds of thousands of dollars saved up to buy a house. I was like, look, this is what I got. And I'm going to go do it, and we're going to figure out the rest. But that's not everybody's ministry, and I don't blame you. I wish I would have saved a lot more money. So I would just say, save your money. The next one, research home buyer programs in your city. Every city has these programs, especially if you are willing to move into like an area that they're trying to gentrify. A lot of times they have income restrictions, but they're trying to get people to move into these areas. So if you qualify, definitely check those out. I know like Bank of America has one with 0 down payment for certain cities. So just look into those. Now, granted, these are still banks, they're still businesses at the end of the day. So even if you ain't got to put no money up, please believe they're getting their money back. All right. So there probably is, extra insurance or things like that you will have to, pay for. But that's just how things kind of go. The next step, get pre-approved. Do not waste these realtors' time, okay? Do not waste realtors' time. Do not go out there with no pre-approval talking about something. I think I'm going to be approved for 700, so I want to go look at all these houses. No. Have a real number so you can set a real budget and real expectations so you don't waste your time or your realtor's time. The next one, find your team. I mentioned this before. You want a good realtor, a good lender, a good contractor in case you do have to make some renovations going in. Build that team beforehand. Build rapport with these people. Let them get to know you and let you get to know them. You really should be interviewing people when you want to work with them and put them on your team because at the end of the day, they work for you. And lastly, you need a mindset shift. I am so tired of people being like, I don't want to own a home. It's pointless. No, what's pointless is you spending thousands of dollars every single year, getting no equity, having no ownership, and having no assets to your name. That is what is pointless. So look, sis, I'm done yelling at you. For now, of course, we have our sister event, but I am here to just tell you, your big sister will not steer you wrong. If buying property is a goal of yours, get started on it now. The economy is shifting. We are losing jobs left and right. While you still got a job, girl, go get that loan, okay? Because let me tell you something, without one, it's very hard to get. You want to create some type of stability in your life. And this actually brings me into my sister event of the week, is our generation is avoiding responsibility like the plague. Every time I have a conversation with someone about home ownership, because I know my friends, I know our crew, I see the way we spend, I see the way we live our lives. Why don't y'all own homes? The number one thing is kind of just like, I just really don't want to. Like, I don't want the responsibility. And I feel the same way about men, like, not wanting to lead a family. I'm like, why are we avoiding responsibility? Like, we are the grown-ups. Like, we are the grown-ups. Like, if you were in your mid-30s and you're still talking about you don't want the responsibility of a house, when do you want the responsibility, friend? Like at 50? I don't know. I'm just saying, like, if you think about it, at 50, your house would almost be paid off. And then you start from scratch. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me. And I'm really tired of our community, like, complaining about how we don't have any money and like how we spend so much. And it's like, yeah, we don't own nothing. Again, if you don't own nothing, you don't run nothing. So I highly suggest you get some assets. And again, I understand not wanting the responsibility if you're single and you live by yourself and you're like, look, I can't deal with, the contractors and the maintenance and all that kind of stuff, but you still should own something. And here's another little note. If you're from like a small town and you move to a big city, please go back home and buy in your hometown. If you can't make it in your hometown, you can't make it anywhere. I'm sorry. And I'm from New York. But listen, there's just something about being able to invest in property, know that you have assets, know that if you ever need to refinance or pull from that, it's almost like a little bank. I've yet to see, real estate go down. Even when it went down, it came back up, right? And again, '08 was definitely a different type of situation, but you really cannot go wrong. And now, am I saying that needs to be your first investment you ever make? Because it is a very big one. No, but there is no excuse if you're in your mid-30s and you are not living paycheck to paycheck of why you have not even considered and explored investing in a real estate. If you're in tough times, look, this is not for you. It's not right now for you, and that's fine. But eventually, I think that should be on your goal list. There's no reason why our people fought to own homes. Like, we're experiencing things still to this day, like redlining and like African Americans being denied at way higher rates than our counterparts that are white and Asian and Indian. And yet y'all just don't want it. I just refuse to believe that. And I see my Black girls, I see us thriving, we're owning businesses, we're making more money than ever. Please invest in a home. Please invest in a home. You will never lose by having somewhere to go live. And that's another thing. Please buy in an area that you would actually live in. A lot of people will tell you, oh, go invest in the hood, get Section 8. Don't buy anything that you wouldn't live in, because God forbid something happens and those tables turn. You have a house to go to, but you scared to live in it? Or you scared to go check on your tenants at night? No. Buy in areas that you would live in. You deserve financial stability. You deserve to create a foundation. If not for you, for the people who are on the way, okay? I know I don't have any kids, but I talk about my kids all the time. They're going to inherit properties. They're going to inherit wealth. And they could be like, wow, my mama really did that. And I told you, if you stayed to the end, you would get a special nugget. I have become a real estate agent. Yes, your girl got her license. And I will say, I am a crazy person. So I launched this podcast and was in school at the same time. I was literally doing my promos for the podcast, taking my test. Then I went on a 3-week birthday trip because mood. But yeah, I've had my license now for about 6 months. I have not sold a house. So I don't really like to say that I'm a realtor because I have been so busy doing Sistervention that I haven't even focused on real estate. But it was something for myself that I really wanted to do because as an investor, I've always wanted to do my own deals. So, you know, I like to go to the mall and the closing table. So now I'll be doing that. If you have any questions about home ownership, please feel free to hit me up. I would love to help you in any state. But you know, your girl's here in Texas, so all my Dallas girlies also hit me up. But yeah, I really thought this was an important episode to do because I have these conversations all the time and I want my girlies to own homes. I want them to be able to create wealth for themselves and create a legacy. So thank you for watching Sistervention. Again, if you have any questions, which I'm sure you guys will have tons, please hit me up. But until next time, I'm your host, Crystal Chanel. Thanks for watching. Bye.